There are so few true living legends alive today. But I recently had the privilege of having one of them in my studio. One of my only living heroes. You're in for a real treat. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance. Here's your host, Randall Terry.
Welcome to the show, friend. I recently had the privilege, the honor of having Joseph Scheidler, Joe as we call him, Joe Scheidler, the founder of the Pro-Life Action League, in my studio. Joe and I go way back, over 3 decades, pushing 3.5 decades now, if my memory is correct. He is in his 80s, and he is in incredible health, and he's known affectionately as the godfather of pro-life activism. He had a profound impact on me as a young man, and that impact continues to this day. And it was just such a joy to have him here and for my family to be able to hang out with him. And so Joe and I sat down for almost 3 hours, cameras running. And well, we're gonna share it with you. This is a series. It's a multi-part series. I know that we're in the middle of really big news, but there are times when you have to look back for inspiration, to show you where you've come from so that you can see where you're going. So I hope you enjoyed today's program. I want to introduce to you my friend, my mentor, Joe Scheidler. I have the privilege of having in studio one of the most famous and beloved pro-life leaders in the entire history of the American pro-life movement. We call him the godfather of the pro-life movement, Joe Scheidler.
Randy, it's a pleasure.
It's always my pleasure, Joe. It's so good to see you. You look great.
Thanks.
Can I ask how many years young you are?
88.
88 years old.
88 and September 89.
You look great for 78.
Thanks.
And if I can get along as well as you are when I'm 80, I hope to be 88. It's so much fun to have you here. When did we meet?
Randy, you know, I've gone over meetings, and it goes way back to I think it's in the 70s.
I think it was the 80s.
Was it 80s? Or it all kind of blends
It's blurring together. It's been over 30 years, that much I remember. I got a call from you. There was a story of my pro-life work in Binghamton, and people were telling me about this man, Joe Scheidler, who was this really aggressive, bold, edgy pro-life leader. And then my phone rang one day, and you said, "Randy, me lad." You always call me my boy. Randy, my boy.
All right.
It's Joe Scheidler. I said, "Joe Scheidler?" And then you came to Binghamton shortly after that.
I wanted to see what you were doing. You were having success. You were going to the abortion mills, and it just sounded like here's something everyone should be doing.
Yeah, but you were doing it before I was.
But let's see how this guy's doing it, because he's having success and he's making the media. That was always something to get into the news. And so I went out there and we met.
We've been all over the place. We've been to Rome. We met the Pope together. I don't even know how many cities in America we've been in. I've got a picture I need to show you.
One I haven't seen. Oh, yes, that one. I remember that one.
You put that up on the screen if you would. This is when we were both just a little bit younger.
We'll make them an offer they can't refuse.
Right, that was the line. We'll make them an offer they can't refuse. For those of you who aren't from the movie era, the violin case was often used to carry something besides a violin. So we were there looking rather unarmed and dangerous.
But truth to tell, there was a violin in that
Yes,
case.
there was.
Your violin.
And you're a violinist.
Yes.
We had a lot of fun. Oh, Lord have mercy. One of the reasons that I was so anxious to sit down with you was to get your perspective. For those of you who don't know, Joe Scheidler founded the Pro-Life Action League, and really since Roe versus Wade and before was active in the pro-life movement, he had a profound impact on me and on literally hundreds of pro-life leaders across the country. And what he did for me is he gave me permission. When you called me on the phone and then came to visit, and we took that picture and we did protests at various abortion mills, I think it was either 84 or 85, and you gave me permission. I know it sounds silly, but you are old enough to be my dad, and I felt like I was out there on this limb, out there on an edge, and then you came along with your fedora and 6'4" and a suit and your bullhorn and, no, Randy, this is great. Go ahead and give him hell.
I never thought I had to give permission. You were already pretty active.
It was more like giving your blessing.
Yeah. Well, I did that.
Yes, you did
that. You were doing a wonderful job, and I was looking for people like you. And they were popping up all across the country. John Ryan down in St. Louis.
Yes.
And we had Earl Appleby, and we had people coming up in the movement. And actually, Joan Andrews,
yes,
taking leading roles, going out to the abortion clinics, debating the abortionists, and keeping this issue alive. I always said, keep it alive. If we ever accept abortion, we're done. So we've got to never accept it. And that's what happened with the pro-life activist movement. We never accepted abortion as legitimate.
If you own a business and would like to advertise on our program, please contact us. We are currently seen on over 130 television stations from coast to coast. We air at 8 p.m. Eastern, and then all times are local. We have a lot of reach, friend, and this is an opportunity at a great price for you to get your product or your service in front of hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people. Also, if there's something that's important to you and you'd like to have a month where you just say thank you to this ministry or promote a certain ministry or a certain cause, contact us. Our rates are incredibly affordable. You'd be surprised. And you, again, can reach into hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of homes. We're currently seen possibly in over 30 million homes. So give us a call, give us an email, and we'll put a commercial up for you. For those who are still alive that were part of PLAN, Pro-Life Action Network, tell our viewers what PLAN was, what we did.
Well, PLAN were the leaders around the country that would meet at some weird place, often out in the woods in a church somewhere. We would keep it secret to make it interesting to the media, and they would be flying planes all over, helicopters looking for our meetings. And we would plan our strategy for the coming year. And we would tell what had worked, the things that had worked, the actions that were most distressing to the abortionist. And they hated to have their homes picketed. They didn't want people to know where they lived, so we would find out where they lived and go picket their homes. They hated having these sit-ins, and so we started the sit-in, where we would sit down in front of the clinic and people couldn't get in. There were just 1,000 ideas that would come out of these planned meetings.
You remember Gary Lieber?
Yep.
From being, and you had a profound impact on him as well. And you said a line, I'm going to say it and see if you can remember the second half. You said a line that so caught him that he would quote it to me on a regular basis. I'll say the first half. Find out what irritates them.
And then do it.
And do only that.
Do only that.
Find out what irritates them and do only that.
Right.
And we did that. We took your cue. We started picketing abortionists at their home, finding out, following them to where they were staying in hotels. Had some pretty wild experiences, just shining the light on them to try and get them to quit.
And we went to their conventions.
Tell us the story about you and George Tiller the Killer. I had never heard this before.
Well, one night they were having a convention in New Orleans.
Now, was this the National Federation of Abortion Providers?
Right, right. NAF. They were having a convention in New Orleans, and I had some work in Chicago, so I got a very late flight out of Chicago and got into the New Orleans airport. At the same time, a young man from Wichita, Kansas was arriving. And there we were, the two of us. We had to get into New Orleans. And he introduced himself as George Tiller, Dr. George Tiller, and he was going to the National Abortion Federation Convention. So I said, oh, I'm going too, because I didn't tell him I was going as a spy. But we struck up a conversation. We rented a cab together. We drove into New Orleans and had a long, long conversation with him doing most of the talking. And I found out all kinds of things about his use of the real-time ultrasound to do abortions, how he was going to promote that.
What year was this?
You know, I'd love to tell you, but...
Early 80s?
Early 80s.
All right, so when you say he was telling you about ultrasound, most people who are watching who have had children have seen ultrasounds.
Right.
It's such an exciting thing to see your baby boy, your baby girl for the first time on the screen. He was explaining to you that he was going to watch babies in real time while he killed them.
Right, to use the ultrasound for the abortion, to make certain that you got everything. He couldn't understand why it wasn't popularized, and he was going to make it popular. So we talked all the way into New Orleans. He stayed at a different hotel. I stayed where the convention was being held. And Andy Schulberg was also there. The next morning I came down and Andy was wearing a badge for the convention. So I said, how'd you do that? He said, I just went over and registered. They don't know who we are. So I went over, paid my $150 and registered for the convention and went to all of the conferences and the meals and the cocktail party and everything. And they couldn't throw us out. They tried. They got the hotel security. At the first meeting we were at, we're sitting in the front row with our notebooks out, and they tried to get us thrown out. Tried to encourage us to leave.
By then, how did they figure out that you were spies? Was this the meeting with the famous button?
No. Somebody recognized me, and they realized, I think Tiller possibly told them that that's Joe Scheidler. He shouldn't be in here. But they called the hotel security, and we weren't doing anything bad, so we stayed. And it was interesting because once they had accepted the fact that we were going to stay, they just went right ahead with their meetings, and we went to every meeting and to the banquet.
What did it feel like?
It was eerie, but we stayed way up in front. We took lots of notes, and we found out a lot of their secrets, a lot of their methods, because they would have things. They always had to bring in some religious figure to justify what they did.
Friend, this program is supported by friends like you who believe in what we are doing. We run a very tight ship. Thankfully, we are on over 130 stations across the country, having tremendous impact. We get emails every day. We get letters in the mail, not every day, but almost every day. We hear from people who love what we're doing. What people don't understand is that it's sort of expensive to produce a television show like this. It doesn't require earth-shattering funds, but it does require financial help. So I am asking you, if you enjoy this program, throw us a $10 or a $20 bill every once in a while, or even a $50 or a $100 check. You see the address there on the screen. Your gifts are not tax deductible, by the way, because we want to be able to say what we want to say regarding politics without the IRS telling us no. So if you like the program, I ask for your support.
They would get a fallen away priest or some minister who was pro-abortion, because they definitely needed to have a sense of justification that what they were doing was not wrong. That was interesting.
Before Tiller was killed and after that meeting, you paid a visit to Wichita once?
Well, Tiller, in our cab ride into New Orleans, had invited me to come to his abortion mill if ever I were in Wichita. So one
this
time,
was before he remembered who you were.
Yeah, right,
all right.
right. So, oh sure, afterwards not. But one time when I was in Wichita, or in Kansas City, I drove down to Wichita and went into his abortion clinic, went all through the rooms, put some flyers in the magazines and so on, and of course had the media with me, and Tiller wasn't there.
Did they follow you into the abortion mill?
They followed me in, yeah. And some of the workers ran out because they didn't want to be on TV. They'd been telling people they worked for a dentist, you know. There's an embarrassment working for an abortionist.
One would
working
think.
at an abortion clinic. And so a lot of
I make
these,
my money from shedding innocent blood.
Right.
My hands are covered with blood.
Right.
Here, can I buy your broccoli?
So they did not want to be on TV. So most of the workers there left, and Tiller wasn't there. So we had a nice little interview with the press in front of the clinic. But Tiller was an interesting guy, totally given to abortion. Thought it was absolutely critical that we have legal abortion.
Demonic. There was some level of demonic, satanic, something so dark and sinister there.
It was. And I thought this is a man that's going to be very hard to convert. Very hard, because he was so dedicated to it.
My only interaction with him was face-to-face with him through his glass as he drove up during the Summer of Mercy
Right.
in 1991, when we were having those hundreds and hundreds of arrests outside of his abortion mill. He drove in one day, and I was this close to him, just
Right.
telling him, you're going to burn in hell, you repent, turn to Christ for forgiveness. If not, God is going to hold you accountable for the shedding of innocent blood. And he was just hard. He was hard as a rock. There was something so dark, so sinister there.
Well, he was convinced in his own mind that abortion was right.
They would
right.
baptize the dead babies there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they had a ritual. They would. That got out, and I think he wanted people to know that the babies were baptized right there in the abortion clinic right after he had aborted them.
Right.
These were late term.
Right. They would dress up. I'm sorry for those of you who find this very disturbing. In his advertisements for killing babies, he would tell people he would do abortions right up to day of birth. I mean, so if a woman found out that she had a handicapped child and she did not want the child and wanted to kill the child, they had, if my memory is correct, it was an Episcopalian minister. Do you remember?
I'm not positive.
Okay, I don't want to misquote. They would abort the baby, and then dress the baby in white baptismal garments, and baptize this poor baby's dead body, and sometimes take pictures with the parents. This is how off the rails, sinister and dark and demonic he was. And bragged about it, used it as an advertising tool.
Well, and you know, he worked in a church. He thought of himself as religious.
He was an usher in that church there in Wichita where he was killed in the foyer.
Right, yeah. I pray for Tiller, George Tiller, because, you know, the cab ride into New Orleans, I kind of got to like the guy. He was so effusive and dedicated and all. A terrible thing to be dedicated to, but it was there. It was a dedication that a medical person should have toward a patient.
Toward healing, though.
Toward healing. And his was for killing.
I want to invite you to go to our website. Almost every book that I have ever written is available as a PDF online for free. We have a ton of products, training materials, tools that are available for you for free. All we ask for is that you give us your email address. That's it. So that we can stay in touch with you and, yes, from time to time, ask you to support this work. So I'm inviting you, go to the website. Now, for those of you who say, well, I don't want a PDF, I want a real book. You can get one of my books. All you have to do is pay for shipping and handling, and then give whatever gift you want. And if you can't afford anything, we'll send you the book for free. Just pay shipping and handling. Why are we doing all this? Because we want to change the direction of the country, and we need to raise up a fresh generation of warriors to do that. That's why we have this tool. I invite you, go to the website, see for yourself. Christians must be involved in government, period. If Christians weren't involved in government, we would not have a United States of America. And there have been brilliant Christian minds over the centuries, such as John Locke, who is called the philosopher of American liberty. He was quoted by Clarence Thomas in his recent dissent on the homosexual marriage decision. If we don't understand John Locke, we don't understand the founding of America. I want to send you this book and my book, The Sword, subtitled The Blessing of Righteous Government and The Overthrow of Tyrants. I want to send you these two books for a gift of whatever you can afford. Pay the $8 shipping and handling, which does not cover our costs, and then give a gift of whatever size you want, and we'll send you these books. If you cannot afford anything but the $8, can't even afford that, write us a note, and we'll send them to you for free. I want you to have these books so that you can be better equipped to fight in the political arena. Come on, order them today. You and I have another mutual acquaintance from the abortion world, Bill Baird. I've got some crazy stories with him. I'm sure that you do as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I knew Bill from way back. Bill was from Hempstead, New York. He had 2 abortion clinics.
He owned 2, and he also, one of the, Baird v. Eisenstadt or something, he had a Supreme Court case that, what was that case about? Was that deregulating birth control or something? Wasn't that?
It was a birth control case.
Yeah.
It was way back.
So he owned these abortion mills, and when you or I would be protesting or leading a protest somewhere, he would go out of his way. He would travel across state lines to find us and to counter-protest us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Bill was another of those peaceful enemies.
And he respected us.
Yeah.
He would call me. Did he? I mean, just to visit.
Bill called me one time to give me a recipe for a morning drink that was supposed to be good for your what ails you and regulate your weight. He would just call up and say, "Have you considered this?" Out of the clear blue sky, and we would fight, we would argue, we would be at each other's throats, and then the next thing you know, we're buddies. We did a series of debates across the country on the college campuses, and of course debates, and the regular debate format, the whole thing. And he would come out with a big table and load it with newspapers and books, and like he was going to use all this stuff. It was just a show. But I remember one time in New Orleans, I went down to debate him at a Catholic college, and he couldn't get out of New York. It rained, very heavy rain. So I insisted that I debate an empty chair. I said, I told the young woman in charge, Mary Mount, that I knew all of his arguments, so I would present his argument and then debate it. And she didn't want that. I said, well, I made it here. I'm here. I want to do a debate. So I debated an empty chair. And Bill heard about it. He was furious. So the next day, he called a radio station in New Orleans. They invited me on, and we had our debate on radio in New Orleans.
Much bigger audience.
Yeah, bigger audience. It was a good idea. And it knocked out my morning of
he called, I was in a personal crisis in the late 90s, and he called me out of the blue just to say, hey, I'm really sorry for what you're going through. And you know, I think this is, for me, this is a place to pause, because there's something that's perverse and twisted, and something that's human and almost undefinable. Here we are talking about somebody who literally owned 2 abortion mills. He had people murdered. He paid physicians to assassinate babies, and then he took profits from them.
Yes.
This is a man whose soul, I believe he's still alive, this is a man whose soul is in great danger. And I would preach to him and say, Bill, you've got to repent, come to Christ, you know, and he would say to me, you're a worthy enemy. And it's... Friend, I hope you enjoyed today's program. We're going to continue over the coming days and weeks with this multi-part series, this incredible interview with Joe Scheidler. Long life to you, Joe. God bless you. See you soon.